You're listening to Engage, the podcast for Delta pilots. On today's episode, fatigue. Here's your host, Ryan Argenta.
Welcome back to another episode of Engage. I'm here with Matt Loveday. He's the chairman of the Fitness Review Board, that's the FRB, and we're talking fatigue, and we're talking the process of fatigue. Matt, welcome to the show. First timer, you'll get your mug. Thanks for being here.
Hey, Ryan, thanks for having me here. The big thing going on at Delta right now, fatigue.
Yeah, it's been over a year since our last check-in with the Fitness Review Board, FRB, and I want to refer people back to episodes 4 and 5. We talked fatigue. We talked through calling fatigue, what it sounds like, feels like to call and talk to the duty pilot. Episode 4 is called Got Fatigue. And there's a follow-on with episode 5. And now here we are a little over a year later after those episodes. And we want to bring it back to focus because it seems like you're getting a lot of calls, a lot of reports from pilots saying, not much has changed. Our schedules are still fatiguing. The rotations are still fatiguing. Matt, what are you seeing?
Yeah, we just did our year in review for 2022. So we're going to focus on that really quick to give you an update from 21. We ended 2022 with a little over 4,300 reports. That's about 3 times more than what we had in 2021. And if we refer back to 2019, way more than 2019, 2018 levels as well. So it does keep rising. We're seeing an increase in the average number of fatigue calls per day. And if we just look into 2023, we can tell you that there are well over the 400s every month in total number of call-ins. So we do not see a decrease happening. We're in that shoulder month right now going into summer. So we do expect that the fatigue calls will go up over summer as well. I can tell you that FRMT has a list of those fatigue mitigations they discuss with the company every month. The thing that we have to explain to the pilot group is that those mitigations are fleet specific and base specific. So things that we fight for to get implemented may be implemented for a month or two, and then they're taken out. Or one base may have them and the other base may not. Or one fleet may have them, but the other fleet may not. So it's a very hazy situation. And that's why pilots don't think there's any change, because one month it looks great. And then next month, the bad pairings are back. So it's very frustrating, but we do keep track of what we see the causes to be, and we submit our recommendations to the company. The company knows about the bad pairings. They know about the certain scheduling factors that create fatigue, but unfortunately, due to staffing and other issues that the company has, they can't keep this continuous per fleet, per base all year long.
Okay, so it sounds like fatigue improvements or improvements to fatiguing rotations occur when it can. And when it's no longer convenient to fly the operation, then they remove those mitigations.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we don't really know, at least on the FRB side, when those go in and go out, and we review fatigue reports in arrears. So we don't get access to them until the month after closure. So we're already looking 1 month behind where we're at.
Okay. And you get a lot of phone calls and emails from pilots directly who complain about fatiguing rotations. What are you hearing from those pilots? What's out there? What's happening?
So what we see lately, and we can revert back to 2022, kind of mirroring the same thing right now, is long duty days and short overnights. Those are the 2 biggest overall issues that we have. We do see a lot of day sleep issues with red eyes, where the red eyes not at the end of the pairing, but at the beginning. And they're getting mid-day sleep to 1 to 2 legs, or they could be rerouted to get 3 legs after that day sleep, and guys are calling in. We also have long sits. That's still an issue, but I would say the consecutive long duty days to short overnights are the biggest issues that we have. Reroutes also cause fatigue. Usually reroutes are not for the better. They're usually for the worst. And we usually see reroutes adding legs, extending the duty day, and also having the pilot fly into their walkable, which is their window of circadian low. That's usually between 2 and 6 a.m. So we're seeing a lot of those, or we're also seeing AM, PM swaps when reroutes come out or delays. So we kind of leave it up to the pilot to determine their fitness when looking at those reroutes. And then even when looking at their pairing that, that they're given. So,
and that's a great segue. And so to cut to the chase, the end story is if you are fatigued, you call in fatigue. It's simple. Again, we walked through it in episode 4 and 5, what it sounds like. We talked to a duty pilot, but the end game for a pilot, if you're feeling fatigued, no matter where you are in a rotation, you call in fatigue.
Yeah. The number one thing, and I cannot stress this enough, and how easy it is, and what the protections are out there for the pilot, is that we have to make the call to the duty pilot to call in fatigued. Otherwise, nothing is going to change. That is the number one thing that we're asking pilots to do, that if you feel that you are fatigued or that you are unfit for your duty day, no matter where you're at, please make that phone call to the duty pilot.
Okay, so that could be any point in the rotation. That could even be before you start a rotation, theoretically. And you call the duty pilot. And what I remember from previous conversations was you call the duty pilot and you simply say, I'm on rotation XYZ. I'm calling in fatigue and I need 24 hours rest. I need 16 hours of rest. I'll be ready at that time. End of story. There's no questions asked. You're pay protected. There's a lot of support for the pilots going forward. So what are the hangups? Are pilots just skittish or scared of calling in fatigue? Do they feel
Yeah.
there's retribution? Do they feel they might be tracked? Do they feel like this is like calling in sick, right? You're sick, you call in sick. So what are the hangups that pilots are having?
Yeah. So we're still seeing multiple hangups with that. We're still seeing pilots who are hesitant to call in, or they're not sure how to call in, or they just feel like they don't want to disrupt the operation. And there's a lot of those external factors getting put into their decision. Maybe the plane's already boarded. Maybe they just have one short leg and they think they can do it. All those things. So what I ask is simply call the duty pilot. When you call the duty pilot and you say that you're fatigued, there should be no questions asked. And we can talk about the unfit portion later. But when you're fatigued, that is a stop where you're at, you're done and you go into rest. And I think when a pilot is fatigued or they're exhausted, they're maybe not thinking clearly. So the duty pilot's next question is always going to be, how much rest do you need? And I think that surprises a lot of people and they may not know. And there's some frustration there that we've been seeing, but I have to expect an answer to this. So what I tell pilots and what I recommend is that look at your original overnight or look at the next overnight or look at your trip and see really how much sleep that you need to feel rested and ready for the next day. And think about that. If you are currently in an IROP scenario or it's late at night, it may take the company an hour to update your schedule. It may take another hour to get your hotel. So think about adding those hours in there when you're coming up with a time. The duty pilot is expecting a time. I would say just look at your schedule, look to see what you think you need. You can say anywhere from 10 hours plus. And I will also say the duty pilot will always go to 10 hours because that is FAR minimum. Sometimes pilots are surprised when they see 10 hours because they didn't give anything. And that's their minimum. So the company is always going to go to 10 hours. So if you need more than 10 hours, you really have to think before you call.
Yeah. So you're in that situation, you're in the airport, and you're like, man, I'm fatigued. I can't go on any further. Before you make the phone call, take a deep breath, sit down and look through the scenario, right? Because each person's going to be different. This could be 2 a.m. You've been delayed. There's IROPS, there's weather. And you're saying, I can't go on through 4 a.m. I'm fatigued. Okay. If I get to a hotel by 4 a.m., I need 8 hours of sleep. Plus I need to get some food. That puts me at like 5 p.m. That's going to be weird, but it's okay. Like think through that scenario and what you need and include the travel time, the transit time. You need to get food, you need to get nutrition. And now you make the phone call and it's quick and easy, right? Hey, I'm fatigued. I need 14 hours of rest. I'll be able to fly tomorrow at 6 p.m. local time. And
Yeah.
that's the end of the story.
Yeah, that's the end of the story. And what happens after that is the duty pilot's going to explain that your schedule is going to be updated and bear with us. And what he does after that is he sends all that information along with your rest and ready time over to crew tracking. And then they start the ball rolling with crew accommodations and everything else with that. So once that's done, then the call is done. There should be no other conversation unless there's something else going on that you need help
And
with from the duty pilot.
And it shouldn't be a negotiation, right? A duty pilot's not going to say, well, can you just make it one more leg to Atlanta and then call in fatigued, right? You're fatigued now. You can't go forward.
Yeah. So if you are fatigued, that is a stop now scenario. So they should not be asking if you can make one leg more, or if it's a deadhead only. Deadheads are still part of your schedule. So that's all there too. So yeah, if it's a fatigue call out, then it is purely you're done there.
Matt, what if I'm a new hire? What if I'm on probation?
There is no difference for probationary pilots to a pilot that's not on probation. If anything, I think there's just a little bit of hesitancy there, but I would just hope that their instructor and their other training mentors have just explained to them that there is no difference. And the company does go into the new hire meetings and explain this program, and they do a great job. I've seen it. It's great. They're very proactive with this. And we've done a few meetings with the new hires too, but they're good to go as well when they make
Yeah,
that call.
because you're on probation doesn't mean you're not fatigued.
Exactly. And we have had those thoughts before and stuff. So I do want to squash that rumor that if you're on probation, you can't call in, because you can call in if you're
And
on
you're,
probation.
you're protected, you're pay protected, you're taken care of. And that goes for all pilots, right?
Yeah. All pilots, I mean, you're protected under the program and no questions asked when you call the duty pilot.
Okay. You mentioned earlier the difference between calling fatigue and calling unfit for duty. And there's a chart that goes with this. I'll link it in the podcast description. But what are the key differences between fatigue and unfit for duty?
Yeah. So the biggest thing with unfit for duty and fatigue is you're going to stop where you're at. Unfit, there's a new chart that was created with FRMT over the summer that got released. And we just did a reminder in the MEC news about this chart. And it's a little different than the unfit for duty for before. But basically, unfit for duty means that based on your current rotation, you are anticipating that you're unable to complete the rest of your flight segments for the.
Give me a real life example of that. How would I apply that?
Sure. And the two examples that I always give for pilots for this is maybe you had some bad sleep at the hotel and you feel fine right now and you can get to Atlanta, but you have another turn after that and you don't think you can do the turn, but you want to maybe, feel that you want to give the company a heads up while you're still at that outstation. You can call and say that you are going to be unfit once you get to Atlanta, and then they can take that turn off your schedule. The other thing for that is maybe you're going somewhere to an outstation, but you can't come back from that outstation because you're going to be unfit once you get there. You're just going to be exhausted. You feel fine now, but you're thinking by the time you get there 3 hours later, you're not going to be good to go. You can also let the company know that you're going to be unfit then, and they can remove you. So with this new unfit chart, the only thing the company may do is they may reduce the number of flight segments, or they can put you into rest. It's up to them. They can't add segments. They can't give you different segments. They can't do anything like that. So, they can't maybe take away a long turn and give you a short turn. That used to be the old way, but it was creating too many issues. And it was basically allowing pilots to reroute themselves. And it was getting very confusing for crew tracking and the duty pilots and everybody involved. And it was really not a win-win situation for anybody. So we felt this with base of how unfit for duty is represented in the FARs and with the FAA that agreed upon is that this allows you to basically complete your current that you're on, and then you're into rest. Now, the company may even take you off of your current leg if they feel like that's the best outcome. So do not get upset or surprised if maybe they just put you into rest then and there.
So there's some massaging there, and you kind of put the ball in the company's court via the duty pilot, versus a fatigue call is everything stops, you go into rest. And then it's figured out from there.
Exactly. Yeah. I think a lot of pilots get a little hung up on the verbiage, but unfit for duty, you're letting them know you can do your current leg and then you're done after that.
And everything is the same in terms of pay protection, pay treatments, rest.
Yeah. All of that is the same. And that leads us in about what does my schedule look like after the fatigue call or the unfit call? After your rest and ready time, you have to be rejoined to your original rotation. And that is via deadhead, or maybe if your rotation goes through where you're currently at, then you just rejoin there. But you have to be rejoined to your original rotation via deadhead. Or if you cannot be rejoined, you are then released from your rotation. I would say we don't really see it that often unless it's on like the last day. They can't rejoin you because it's the last day, or maybe it's an international pairing where they can't deadhead you over and keep the operation together. Most of the time, you're just deadheaded the next day after your rest and ready time to rejoin the rotation.
Okay, so here is perhaps a common problem. It's go home day. And you have it seems like a lot of rotations. You have like 2 easy days, and then the last day they slam you. And you've got 4 or 5 legs, you got a long duty day. You're in the middle, if you can push through 2 more legs, you go home. What if you call in fatigue on go home day in the middle of the rotation? What happens then? I just want to go home.
Yeah, if you're in base and you still have a turn left and you call in fatigue, they just take that last turn off your schedule. If you are at an outstation on your last day and you are fatigued and you do not want to risk anything, there is nothing wrong with calling in on your last day and saying that you need 12 hours of rest and I can then finish my rotation. They would put you into rest. You would obviously likely be released the next day after that. There are instances where they may delay that last leg for you through the night. And because that leg is on your original pairing, that's sufficient. Or they just release you or deadhead you the next day. As long as they're following 24A, they're able to do that. But there's no harm, no foul for calling in on the last day. If you need the rest, I would say, please take the rest.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. It doesn't matter where you are in the rotation. I know we all want to go home. You could say, hey, I need a rest, and then you're going to deadhead me home later on.
Yeah. We try to put in perspective is that we sign that piece of paper before every leg. And if you feel that you are not fit for duty for that leg, even if it's the last go home leg, it's our duty, not only to the company, but to the passengers and then to ourselves, that we make that call and call in.
And it's an FAA regulation. If you're
And,
fatigued, you
and we
cannot
are
fly.
bound by the FAA to make that call too. Yes, exactly. And we remind guys of that all the time too. There's that FAA portion that we have to abide by.
Yeah. I want to turn to a couple of things you've mentioned that you've gotten phone calls or emails from pilots, and they say a couple of taglines, right? I had this incredibly fatiguing rotation, and the next time I'm calling in fatigue. What's wrong with that statement?
Yeah, that means that they probably should have called in during their rotation. I know that it's kind of a informative email or informative explanation to us. However, if that pilot's admitting that, we clarify with them that one, they did not fly fatigue, because if they did fly fatigue, they need to file an ASAP so they can make sure that they cover themselves for any type of issues that would arise. Not that anything would, but just so everything's covered. We know how to use the ASAP program. But that is the one thing that we've seen an increase of in the last year, is guys informing us of very fatiguing rotations, but they're actually not making the call. We need them to make the call to stop the operation and do what's best for their fitness levels.
Absolutely. We see the posters in the crew rooms: call, rest, right.
If we're talking about the fatigue report, yes, we do have to do the fatigue report. The duty pilot, after that fatigue call, the last thing that he says to the pilot is that you'll be emailed a link to fill out for your fatigue report. And we call it an FFDR, which is a fitness for duty report. You'll get that within a few hours from the duty pilot, and then you have 48 hours to fill that out. And it's an easy form to fill out. If you do not extend, you no longer have to fill out a report. But anytime you call and fatigued or unfit for duty, you are still required to submit an FFDR.
So the posters are correct: call, rest, and then within 48 hours, right. You no longer have to accept, well, you never had to accept an extension, but there's no paperwork. It's just done. I'm not extending.
Exactly. It's just you're not extended. Yep.
And all right, I want to go now into what does the fitness review board do behind the scenes, right? You're answering pilot phone calls, emails, you're protecting pilots day to day, but behind the scenes, you have a team, you have a staff that you meet with the company, you present fatigue data. What does the FRB do?
Yeah. So behind the scenes, besides the emails and phone calls with pilots and reps and podcasts and all of our information that we put out, Every month we review the FFDRs that we get from the company. We don't get the month until it closes out. And our team reviews every single one. We read every single one. We analyze it. We take down contributing factors. We look at hotel issues. We look at reroutes, food issues, and then we look at kind of a root cause at the end of it. And we determine that. And then every month we have a meeting with the company. And that meeting with the company is to go over reports. So your reports are read, just read in arrear, slightly delayed once we get them from the company once the month is closed out.
Does the company feel that we don't have a fatigue problem? Are they
So,
receptive to what you're saying?
yeah, so our fatigue counterparts at Delta within the last year, they've been very receptive to what we've been giving them. I would say they are mostly in agreement that we have a problem and that we're slowly going to start finally coming up with ways to reduce the number of calls. And we're going to work with the company of FRMT and some of the other groups that are working behind the scenes. We have some stuff going on in the background, hopefully here within the next few months, where we can kind of start getting a plan of action together, especially once saw the huge increase from 21 to 2022. And as of right now, it doesn't look like it's going to go down in 2023.
So it's not so much that you're trying to get rid of fatigue calls, but you're trying to fix the fatiguing rotations. You're trying to fix the triggers for these fatiguing trips.
Yeah, exactly. The FRB, one of our tasks besides pay is to track trend data. And so that's what our team does every month is we track some trends and we look at a root cause thing to see if we see a trend in the number of root causes. So that is our goal, is to basically change that the best that we can. I don't know if that's always going to happen, but that is our goal every month, is to try our best to get these pairings changed. But in the meantime, the one thing I can tell you that unless you call in, nothing's going to change. Our last line of defense here in determining good pairing, a bad pairing. Luckily,
Pilots are the circuit breakers.
yeah, exactly. Kudos to FRMT. We work with them every month. They started listing the pairings that they view as fatiguing. They've been giving them out to the pilot group every month, and take a look at that and see. That doesn't mean that your pairing may not be, doesn't mean that the reroute that you were given may not be, but it's really up to us once again to determine our fitness for duty.
Okay. I think a lot of people will say, and maybe the company will say this as well, but will the new contract and all the changes in scheduling and rotation construction, will all the protections, will the new contract solve fatigue?
Our team has been asked lately, and some of those changes are being implemented in different times. So it's very hard to tell what it's going to be. I think a part of me would like to think that it is going to fix some of that stuff if it's implemented as it said it should be. I really hope it does take down some of our fatigue stuff, but it's obviously too early to tell right now. So I really don't know. Our year in review for 2023 may be foretelling of that, especially I know a lot of those scheduling implementations are going to happen after the summer. So we'll see after that. But like you said before, we're the circuit breakers. So it's up to us to sign that piece of paper every day and see if we are fit for what we're doing.
Okay. Matt, what do you need from pilots? What's the message you want to get out to us?
I think the message, at least from our team, that we see from the reports and everything and dealing with pilots on the side and our phone calls, is that fatigue is not a bad word. Unfit for duty is not a bad word. It is just the nature of our profession, given the types of schedules that we fly and the changes in our rest that we deal with and the IROPS that we deal with. So I just want to remind the pilot group that it's not a bad thing to call in, and that there are days that we are not going to be able to complete the mission. We do see from guys that once they make that first call, they let us know. They're like, oh, we didn't realize it was so easy, and that I was rejoined and good to go. And I felt way better after getting my rest than I ever thought I would.
Perfect. Last hacks.
We do get a lot of calls from pilots that they want to call in before they attempt rest because they want to try to help the operation. They want to make sure they can tell the company in time so they can get a pilot there to fly that flight. And the company has come to us and their view is that they would like the pilot to attempt rest first and try to attempt sleep during their rest period. And then once they wake up, make that decision. They've been very clear with us that it's not our job to be crew scheduling and that it's not up to us to help save the operation. Once you wake up, if you feel that you're fatigued or unfit, then make the call. Now, I'm not saying that every pilot needs to do this. I'm just letting them know that the company and us would like to see that the pilot attempts sleep first and then make the call.
And
But
when you say that, you're insinuating, you're saying you are finishing a long day, you're going into rest, you're going into the hotel, and you're saying, man, tomorrow we have an early show. I just can't get it done. So instead of calling in fatigue then or calling in unfit for duty then, they're asking pilots to try to get some sleep, see how you feel in the morning. Don't be the hero and either push through, but also don't be crew scheduling and try to save the operation. Just do your thing. Go to sleep, wake up, have a cup of coffee and go, nope,
yeah,
can't do it.
and then evaluate because they want to see, and so do we, that, you attempted sleep and whatnot, and did everything that you could. And then to counter that though, if you feel that even your 11-hour overnight is not going to be enough and that you just need no interruptions and you just want to be done, then by all means call in that night.
And in the same token where you go through, you got into the hotel and there's a party happening next door. Now this is where you talk to the hotel manager or the front desk, you try to get a different room, and then there's a baby crying or there's sirens outside or whatever's happening. You just can't get good rest. You can then call fatigue then, or you can wait till the morning and say, yeah, I can't do it either. It's all the same boat, right?
Yeah, it's all the same. Regarding hotel stuff, calling in the night during the middle of it is perfectly okay too, because we see that every month with fire alarms and hotel parties and other issues that at that point, your rest has already been interrupted so much that it's not, whether you go back to sleep for 4 hours or not, is not going to make the difference, and that they can call in. The other thing to highlight on that we see to try to get rest is for if this is in relation to like a pre-report fatigue call. We'd like to see pilots attempt rest just to see if they can, how they feel the next day or whatnot, just to show that they're doing everything that they can to attempt rest first and then make that decision. But by no means am I saying that's a must do, that's just with some highlights from the company about to try to get rest first.
Okay. What else you got?
Please check your rest and ready time and to look at your rotation rejoin just to make sure that it's following 24 AA, because we have been seeing where a pilot's rest and ready time is not accurate. And once the pilot sees that, they need to call the duty pilot to get that addressed because they can't report before their rest and ready time. So, if a pilot said that their rest and ready time was noon and their schedule was updated with an 11 a.m. report, that's not correct. So they need to call that duty pilot back and say, hey, I just told you guys that my rest and ready time was noon. You need to have crew tracking, update my schedule.
Okay.
Then something to end with, I would just say as a reminder, the FRB portion of the APA website is constantly updated. We have a great subset of question and answers on the drop-down menus to look at. And we do continue to push all that to the tablet as well. So what's on the website, most of it is on the tablet and vice versa. So those are your two best areas to look at.
So on your company iPad, the ALPA folder, find the FRB, and all the information from your website is on there. So while you're in the heat of the moment, you're flying, you're in the airport, you go to your tablet, ALPA folder, FRB, all that information is there and it'll walk you through.
Yeah, all that's there. There's a great chart that talks about what to do when you're fatigued, a great step-by-step. That is still current. It's very easy. It goes over exactly what we talked about. And if you're not flying and you have access to the Alpha website, our question and answers and our drop-down menus are great. And I would say if the pilot has anything else, then obviously our there are ways to reach us once you get to the FRB portion of the Apple website.
Very good. Matt Loveday, chairman of the Fitness Review Board. Thanks so much for the information. Thanks for what you do for us. We certainly appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, Ryan, for having me on. And there's no reason for the pilot to be flying fatigued. There's no reason for us trying to complete the mission. We have to remind ourselves that we have to be safety oriented first. It's our duty to make sure we make the right call.
Don't fly fatigue. You heard it here. Matt Loveday, chairman of the FRB. This has been Engaged, the podcast for Delta pilots. Thanks for listening. My name is Ryan Argenta. Stay safe and keep the rubber on the road.
You're listening to Engage, the podcast for Delta pilots. Follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your favorite podcast platform, and receive notifications when a new episode is available.